And thank you to the British Council and the Open University for inviting me to be part of this symposium. And listening to the speakers this morning, it's certainly very, very interesting. Lots of issues have been raised and lots of problems have been identified. And I hope that it will make for a very rich discussion towards the end. Now, as Martin said, the role of language and literacy in development has been a central part of my writing and research for quite a number of years. My interest in the area started in the central part that language policy played in the shaping of apartheid consciousness in South Africa, where I was born and lived until in my early 20s. For those of us who remember the history of South Africa, may remember that the quest for English language teaching as opposed to Afrikaans ultimately led to the student uprising in Soweto during the 1970s. That rejection of Afrikaans was a profoundly political act. It was the rejection, really, of the apartheid state. In other words, language was imbued with ideology and lay, in this instance, at the heart of the state. Within this context, English, although an ex-colonial language, became the means by which the oppressive apartheid state could be transcended. The popular saying at the time, Afrikaans stops at the Limpopo River, represented a powerful disincentive for those who wanted to achieve in life, who wanted to participate in the wider world. Of course, economically, apartheid South Africa continued to do rather well economically, still for the next 20 years. It is also interesting to note, last night I was looking at students' work. Student is a Dalit from India. And of course, there are many problems related to inequality and the Dalit community in India as well. And I was interested to see that for the Dalit community, English has also become an aspirational thing, a means by which they can redefine themselves and negotiate a space and a place for themselves in the world. Now, I use this background to help to make a broader point, really, namely that language is a many-meaning thing, and I think that came through this morning. There's lots of complexities that surround the issue of language, one of which is local languages. We were talking, one of the speakers this morning was talking about. So language is a many-meaning thing. It can signify different things in different contexts and different epochs. Ros Appleby, in a vodcast, raises an important issue related to that we need to be clear about whether and how language is related to development. In my talk this afternoon, I hope to address one element of it. And I will start off really by looking at development itself. Now, the speakers this morning have talked about development. I am just going to talk about it in a very general way. The notion of development historically has its locus in the nation state. It is traditionally defined in relation to the need to strengthen the economic or material base of the nation state, mainly through industrialization, and through this to benefit society as a whole, building social and economic infrastructure to benefit society by reducing poverty, inequality in income distribution, and unemployment. Now, if we look at the slide at the top there, we can see in the middle various aspects of development, including citizenship, social cohesion, human resource development, and education. What we want to focus on is the one at the bottom. This is the area that we are interested in, because my argument is that this influences that, influences this, and hopefully contributes to that. Okay, so we look specifically at language and development then. So language and literacy, overlapping with labour market needs, cultural maintenance and integration, social cohesion and citizenship. That is the context of the nation state. However, since that time, there have been many changes in the world. We have this thing that people call globalization that has taken place now. While that has taken place, there are many unresolved language and education issues in developing countries that our speakers have talked about. So while they have remained, new ways of doing things have emerged. And I think Manuel Castells, sociologist, sums it up very nicely in that he says it's a new historical reality, really. It is inscribed in processes of capitalist restructuring, innovation and competition, and enacted through the powerful medium of information and communication technologies. So here we have systems change. The situation in the world has changed. The ways in which things are done, the way people are employed, the way people do things have changed. So, in the global arena, we have increased economic competition between nation states and economic blocs, so we now are transcending the nation state. We have markets that are IT driven. We have, this is probably one of the main things at the bottom here, rapid information, knowledge and finance flows within a very dynamic, interactive global market. Within that, we have this new work practices. And those work practices extend from within the national to the transnational. Yeah. So we have flows. Yeah. We are beginning to talk about flows in terms of all these things. There's information flow, competition, IT, and new work practices as well. So we have moved away from the old way of doing things. Well, let's call it Fordism, much debated, but let's call it that. Working by hand to a new way of working facilitated by information technology. Somebody raised the issue of knowledge economy, and that is what I want to talk about today, really. I want to talk about the way in which we need to respond, or developing countries are beginning to respond and should take account of the new realities in the world. Let's call it the knowledge economy. The new skills demand. We go down here on the right side. Worker practices have been changed. Skills, competences have been changed. We have this thing called multi-skilling, multitasking. Awarenesses form part of the work place as well. So in work practices we have people working together interactively. We have integrated group work. Individuals are responsible for their own tasks, working together, training one another, peer learning, and so on. The main thing here, as we can see, is interactive. It is integrated. And this integrated, interactive ways of work does not necessarily take place within one nation state. It takes place internationally, within the international arena. The skills competences. So there are a range of skills that are required. Technological, practical problem solving. You can see that relates to that one there. People working together on the same kinds of tasks, and they need to negotiate with one another. So practical problem solving. Because the work is more and more across geographic barriers, the need for intercultural communication and multilingualism. Following that, interpersonal communication has become important, as has decision-making, initiative, and so on. So you can see a whole range of competences are required within the new milieu. Within that, transferable skills as well, we won't stay too much with that. The awareness is to be aware of the world, to be aware of different cultures, different peoples, reflexiveness, learning to learn, continuous skills upgrading, and this reflexive self-learning, being always aware of the labour market, because life has become ever so uncertain and things can change very suddenly as well. So the key point that I want to make here is that we now have institutional knowledge sharing and transfer across systems and geographic locations. So somebody was saying things have to change. Yes, they have to change. Things are in the process of changing. And within this, to cater for all these skills and awarenesses, there is a need for high quality education and training. The next thing that is very important, the question that Roz raises about what is it about language that is important? Is it important to development? Certainly within this new milieu, it certainly is. Language and communication lie at the center of these new work regimes and practices. Yeah. So language has come to the forefront. By this, the language and linguistic capital of a country will contribute to that country's productive capacity within the new knowledge economy. Now I'm saying language and linguistic capital, and I make the difference here, language capital meaning different languages, multilingualism, and within that linguistic capital meaning the ability to speak a language properly and to be able to communicate within different contexts with different people. So to be able to not only to be fluent, but to be skilled in language use as well. Okay, so now I'm going to focus on how countries have started to harness globalization for development. Okay, there are economic opportunities for developing countries in relation to cross-border trade in services. Yeah. Through in relation to that, strategic human resource mobilization. And the countries that have been involved with it have been involved with labor export, offshoring, or outsourcing. Yeah. The obverse of that, obviously, is labor import, onshoring of services by developing countries. Now, just to give us an idea, the size of the global offshoring market is in excess of 70 billion US dollars, and it continues to go at a fast pace. If we look at how it is carved up, offshore and onshore, offshore, BPO, and offshore IT services. Okay? BPO is business processing outsourcing. Yeah. Okay. And IT services outsourcing. The financial services is the leading adopter of offshore services. And if we look at it here, financial services, manufacturing, high-tech and telecom, and other sectors as well. Okay. So within this new, what I call the BPO industry, the key skills required are to do with language, to do with voice. Language and literacy proficiency, communication skills, including accent, discourse styles, interpersonal skills, and then high quality education for high skills that are appropriate to the BPA industries, transferable skills, expert knowledges, and a graduate workforce. Together, it will benefit the economy, employment, the status, and the country's status in the global marketplace. This is from the Philippines. You can just see how the language work, how they've parceled out their language work. It's a bit faint. contact centers, 51%, transcription, animation, software development, and others. So there are opportunities for language work. Yeah? So who are the countries who've been making use of this? They are the new tigers. I don't know if I can call them the new tigers, but the emerging countries now. India, Malaysia, and the Philippines. Of them, of course, India is at the forefront, followed by the Philippines. Okay? They are the ones that are most competitive within the BPO IT offshore services markets. Those coming up are South Africa, Ghana, and Kenya. Yeah? They're the growing markets. Of them, South Africa is in the forefront. Ghana is second. Ghana has a lot of low-skilled work that it can do, yes? But the high-skilled work, it lags behind because it lacks an established educational system. Okay. So what has been their strategy? Investment in education. So the need for a large pool of ready-to-hire high-skilled graduates. English is one of their official languages. Okay? English is the preferred language of international business so far. Multilingualism, the need to cater for different markets, and the speakers this morning did talk about that. Very interesting, this point here. Many call center outsourcing firms in the Philippines capitalize on the multilingual Filipino workforce to serve the Hispanic, Japanese, and European population. So multilingualism. And in addition to that, conversational skills as well as deep understanding and appreciation of Western culture. Beth, I'm just going to conclude. Have a look at India's talent pool. Varied. All graduates, yeah, its population. So, to end almost, bar one slide. So, the 21st linguistic and communicative capability in the workplace. English, to gain access to the world markets. Local languages, to exchange within different market sectors. In national, local, and regional economies. Linguistic flexibility, multilingualism, and so on. Discourse styles, discourse strategies. Basic literacy is a taken for granted factor. Multiliteracies, very sophisticated literacy skills. Higher order thinking skills, we have them all, analysis, interpretation, and so on. And then interpersonal communication skills, including listening, speaking, writing, intercultural communication. Okay, so to round out then, so what are the language teaching issues in developing countries now within this, to be able for them to benefit from the participating in the knowledge economy? English language proficiency amongst teachers. Yeah. A multilingual base of the country need to be enhanced through language in education policy and practice because it plays a key role in value creation. Then what do I mean by that? Local languages to facilitate the learning process, to maximize the educational quality, to serve the high-skilled labor pool. Languages of wider communication, they have a lot of exchange value in local and regional markets. Yeah? Very important in terms of building market networks. Then international languages, okay, to exchange value in the international markets, for example, Japan, Europe, etc., etc. I think that is it. The point that I didn't make earlier that I should have made, the distinction that was mentioned earlier about the formal and informal market. Now, the informal market by itself is constrained. It operates in a limited arena. Yes? A country's development depends on entry into the formal labor market. And the argument is, as countries like India, Malaysia, the Philippines have availed themselves of the knowledge economy, they have actually benefited from having increased FDI, foreign direct investment, which is a key marker in development. Okay, thank you.